Observation 1 resolution analysis states upon as the topic, the United States federal government should engage in significant civil society development projects within Libya. The piece upon is the framework, one fiat as an act of imagination, necessary to both teams access to debate. Any other affirmative denies reciprocity should be rejected. 2. The affirmative team has the right to define the topic reasonably through the use of parametrics with the burden of proving the topic true. 3. Policy and evidence is the best criterion for the debate, allows both teams access to predictable burdens and methods of refutation. 4. Discussing implications to be evaluated through the framework of the affirmative methodology of the plan is flawed. The implications of the criticism must be a direct effect of plans passing. 5. Due to the fact that all words have multiplicity of meaning, unless the affirmative's interpretation is shown to exclude the negative out to be accepted nor the void signs through the PMC 6 the PMC signs. 2. Through competing interpretations of affirmatives, discursive implications or more medium must be paramount over the PMC discursive various. Observation 2 is the background. The first argument is Zaka Al-Maghrabi, the Libyan writer, professor, and senior women rights activist, says that Libya is moving towards an Afghani model regarding women's rights unless immediate action is taken. The second argument is that women receive increased number of threats and receive a higher amount of violence when protesting, particularly when protesting for their own rights. Al-Maghrabi says that this is why women are not involved in the Libyan revolution. The third argument is that women hold only 6 seats out of the 60 seats available in the Libyan Congress right now. And the fourth argument is that at the Friends of Libya conference, John Kerry said that women's participation is going to be key in order to develop the Constitution. Thus, the plan text. Observation 3. The United States federal government, through an act of Congress signed by the President, will implement the United States Agency for International Development's Women Building Peace Program in Libya. The United States federal government, through an act of Congress signed by the President, will implement the United States Agency for International Development's Women Building Peace Program in Libya. Observation 4 is the solvency. The first argument is that there are equal numbers of men and women with degrees in Libya right now, that college education is distributed relatively equally. The second argument is that 71% of Libyan women say that they are somewhat or very interested in getting involved in the political process. The third argument is that the plan is modeled after USAID's program that is in Uganda and in Ethiopia right now. The fourth argument is that the plan strives to increase the value placed on women in society by developing their skills, capacity, and the confidence of women, and by changing the peace committee structure to allow female participation so that they get access to the talks on the development of the Constitution that is happening right now. Advantage 1, women's rights. Based upon its uniqueness, the first argument is that women's rights are low right now and few women are politically engaged. As a result, the little A's, you can look to the 6 out of 60 seats that women control in the Congress right now. The little B is that you can look to prisoners who are literally begging for the right to commit suicide because of the amount of humiliation that they face as a result of their gender, where they face rape and even being sold into slavery by the Libyan government that exists at present. The little C is that the female voter turnout was 22% lower than that of the male voter turnout for the most recent elections. The second argument is that women want to engage politically but are not able to due to the political climate in Libya. The little A, as in the background, women are harassed and brutalized when protesting for their own rights. So this forces most women who want to organize to meet in secret because otherwise they will be attacked. The little B is that women are asked for have asked for gender parity provisions, and this was promised to them, but the Constitutional Committee has gotten rid of this provision. The little C is that rules have been enforced that do not allow women to move around the country freely unless accompanied by a male, means that these women don't have the ability to organize right now. The B components link. The first argument is that we implement this program, the USAID's program in Libya. The second argument is that the plan gives the plan gives money and personnel, which allows women to use these personnel to be able to go out and be politically active because they are now protected as a result. Since Libya makes women travel with men, and this will break down this rule, then women are going to be able to organize without fear of repercussions. The third argument is that the plan educates women, which is going to allow them to break into the political process because with better education, they are going to be able to better engage and are going to be considered more valuable to the peace process, means that these men are going to welcome them into the process. The C support of the impacts. The first argument is that this stalls the institutional violence against women. The little A is that empowers them through education and through resources that otherwise would not be available to them, means that these women are getting access to new opportunities. The little B is that it solves for the structural sexism because the plan aims to increase women's participation in the political process through things like elections, and this is key right now because they're just starting to make the Constitution, means that if we get women involved, it is going to be able to solve for their rights into the future because they can guarantee that the Constitution protects them. Advantage 2, civil society. The basic point is uniqueness. The first argument is that this transition to democracy is going to fail in the status quo. The little a is that the elections on February 20th resulted in violence and a very low voter turnout. The little b is that less than 1/3 of people qualified to register to vote in Libya are actually registered to vote right now. The little c is sympathizers. On February 14th, Khalifa Haftar, a general who defected from Gaddafi, called for the suspension of the government and Congress in order to, quote-unquote, rescue the country. That sympathizers of Gaddafi are trying to derail the political process right now. The basic point is linked. The first argument is that you can cross-apply all of the solvency arguments for how the plan solves. The second argument is that a study showed that an estimate of $10 million towards democracy and governance program aid would lead to a 5-fold increase in the amount of democratic change that the average country would otherwise experience, according to USAID. The CISA point of the impacts. The first argument is the golden arches theory. The McRib is back and is bringing democracy with it. The little a is that countries are not likely to go to war with each other when they're democratic countries because their democratic values allow them to engage in more diplomacy, and their capitalist values allow them to recognize the necessary benefit that they provide to one another. The second argument is human rights. That human rights are more likely to be protected when there are more individuals who have been faced with oppression in their lifetime involved in the political process. The Constitution is going to be written in a way that is going to protect the rights of individuals and prevent the mass genocide that has happened in Libya for years as a result of the former constitution that they were operating under. This can only happen through the engagement of politically important oppressed minorities. The third argument is that of genocide. That genocide is going to be able to be checked back against when there is a higher female involvement in the political process than when the Congress has more female Congress people, that there's going to be a lower propensity for genocide because these individuals have been faced by so much oppression in the past that they are going to have the sympathy to not engage in this into the future. Yeah,
it's about diversity of voices.
Right, more it's about a diversity of voices. The more voices that are included in the political process, the more will be represented by the actions of the political system. Means that by involving these women in the political process, we can resolve the problems of the political machinations of present. And the fourth argument is that of environmental destruction, that by including the greater multiplicity of voices that we are going to be able to better solve back for environmental destruction, because by no longer just representing the male interest, we are going to see the broader implications of the policies that get passed in Libya, and as a result be able to resolve back the causes of this environmental degradation.
1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 3 or 4 off on top, and then on the background, and then on to advanced and advanced 2.
Do I need 5 sheets for any of them?
No. Not that pro.
We have 4 criticisms. We only have 3 off.
All of them are criticisms.
Sorry, and then did you say case in order?
Yep. Are you ready?
Just a second.
Ready now? Okay, you ready? Okay. Travis, how civil society, the interpretation of civil society is formed by voluntary action around shared values and purposes intended to improve the lives of all citizens without compromising their identity. Violation. 1, they compromise the dignity by reducing self-reliance and increasing reliance on the United States. 2, they don't improve the lives of all people, they only improve the lives of women. 3 is that their civil society development is not built around shared values to the point where most people in Libya actually don't support equal rights for women. That means that they're not centered around shared values. Reasons to prefer. 1, the literature base. Our definitions from the London School of Economics and continues to be the defining standard for contemporary civil society development, specifically in Afghanistan. The lit base is most important topic area tournaments because there's only one lit base for both teams can access while researching. What? Oh, I'll get you in 5 minutes. 2, limits. What limits was it? Limits ours sets up a clear bright line for the for civil society development as outlined in the literature. More limits means we have better debates because they're open, because they're topic area centered. 3, ground. Negatives should get your affirmative as counterpoint ground. Additionally, you deny any access to solvency arguments and backlash DA voters. Competing interpretations. If we want our interpretation in the violation affirmative has not upheld the resolution true, even if it is beneficial, so you presume negative. 2, fairness. Rules come before the game. You must ensure both teams have a fair ground in the debate before you can evaluate the argumentation of the debate, and it's a priority. Rules come before the game. Do you answer your question?
Yeah, can I get a copy of your interpretation?
Okay, moving on to the disadvantage one. Number 1, Russia backlash. A is that U.S.-Russia relations are in the brink of status quo. 1, the relations hit a wall with the Russian aggression in Crimea. Russia is using actions in Crimea with the vote in favor today of joining Russia. Relations are stable as of this morning. 2 is that Russia sets Libya as part of the sphere of influence of what is that Russia and Gaddafi were close and Russia was upset at civil society intervention. B is that Russia stated it regrets not vetoing Libyan support for the resolution in the UN. C is that Russia is concerned about Libya falling into Western hands and considering the Libyan oil resources. And next is links. U.S. intervention is perceived as a challenge and collapses relations. One is the plan it equals an active breach of Russian influence, calling out Russia on its failures. B is the plan is seen as retaliation in Crimea based on the vote this morning to join Russia. C is the plan turns the tables and challenges Russia to take action. If they don't, they lose credibility, impacts Russia's retaliation by growing influence in other areas. 1. Russia redoubles attempts to control Europe by invading Ukraine and other Baltic nations. This forces the EU and NATO to intervene. Through this escalation to war control over Eastern Europe, making miscalculation inevitable as the loser to one major battle resorts to nuclear force. 3 is the extinction via nuclear war. When there's extinction, that means that the sun is blocked out by the nuclear clouds and we are not able to actually get these sun, which means we die because our planet's dead. Okay, moving on to disadvantage number 2, American politics. Is that S2777 is the Emergency Unemployment Compensation Extension Act of 2014 will pass in the Senate. But 1 is that this is a bipartisan solution to extend emergency unemployment benefit for 5 months. The benefits expire in December, immediately affecting 1.3 million people. In addition, 4 million people are going to be cut off by July. 2 is that the bill has been has bipartisan support with 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans. And this will be sent to the Senate in a week, and then it will be pushed through the House ASAP. 3 is that the economy is recovering. The status quo, but needs more time. The unemployment is down and GDP growth is up. However, recovering is tenuous, and the economy has not returned to pre-2008 levels, indicating we must safeguard recovery as long as possible. Links is 1. The plan disrupts congressional coherency and prevents passage of the bill. 1 is this plan angers Republicans because Republicans don't actually want to engage in Libya. 2 is that now is the key time. The bill has lots of momentum. Absent that, the bill is likely to languish some way in the CIR, like the way the CIR has to. 3 is that now is the key time. The bill extends employment for 5 months from this date. If it languishes, bring to the disadvantages already triggered, and it'll be too late. Impacts. 4 million people will lose unemployment over the next 5 months if this bill fails, and at least the collapse of consumer spending is at the worst possible time when the economy is still tenuous. 2 is that the collapse of consumer spending collapses business and investor confidence, and low sales cause businesses to slash labor hours, supercharging spending collapse, and it causes investment causes investors to sit on cash, robbing businesses of investment capital necessary for future growth. 3 is that failure also affects external perception links. This demonstrates that Congress is too gridlocked to safeguard the economy, triggering collapse of the economy as a whole, and a collapse of the U.S. economy because of global economic interdependence means the collapse of other economies. This will ultimately lead to resource wars. When you collapse the other economies, that means people are desperate for food. Now countries will fight over food, and then when they fight over food, that is an existential threat to their existence. If they don't get this food, which means that they will result in nuclear war. Cost analysis is why nuclear war is extinction. Counterpoint. Text. Russia will create a program modeled after the United States Agency for International Development's Women Peace Building Program in Libya. The Russian Federation will implement a program modeled after the United States Agency for International Development's Women's Peace Building Program in Libya.
Yep, so status and copy.
Conditional. And you can just, it's pretty much Russia does the plan, but models the thing. Okay, moving on to the competition. 1, the common plan is textually competition. There's no plan plus, and there's no coherent combination of the text. 2, the common plan is functionally competes on the basis of net benefits. Subpoint A is that the common plan avoids a Russia disadvantage, as well as is not involved does not involve the U.S. entering Russia's sphere of influence. B is that the common plan avoids U.S. politics, is not involuntary U.S. action. Solvency. 1, Russia is fully able to do the affirmative and resolve with civil society development. Solvency. Okay, so moving on to the background of solvency. Solvency. 1, there is not enough money in the status quo. The U.S. is already partnering with Libya via MEPI. In case in the past 2 years, the U.S. provided $170 million to promote liberty and democracy in Libya. 2 is a turn despite positions of the government fracturing. Despite positive government fracturing of MEPI, U.S. involvement only looks like U.S. superimposing its ideas on Libyan people, which turns the entirety of their case, because if you're superposing in your ideas, the people don't want to cooperate with you. 3 is this token success only entrenches cultural oppression. MEPI success only idolizes a few women that help. This re-entrenches the white savior mentality and short circuits future development as kids see Americans and not locals as heroes. The score is that UNSMIL director is the direct coordinator of all U.S. Libya initiatives. So this probably indicates the time frame, their impacts, because there is no they cannot yet immediately the implementation of the plan. They can say that it implements fast. They say that the plan will pass immediately, but they cannot be at the implementation of the UN. 5 is that the U.S. is not solving for Arab exceptionalism mindset that experts believe led to the Arab Spring and the current conflict in the first place, forcing cultural and sensitive solutions on others and perpetuating the conflict to the point where they're not solving for that. That means that they don't solve for the entirety of their case and actually turn the impacts because they actually reinforce that mentality. Again, with case 1, women's rights. Across my analysis we hear how you're actually imposing on these people something that they don't actually want. The vast majority of men in Libya don't support women's rights, and at that point, that means that you're backlashing against all the U.S.'s efforts, and that means that all the past U.S.'s efforts. You can cross by my analysis how the U.S. is already involved in Libya and has donated $170 million to democracy development. At that point, when you are specifically focusing on women, that destroys the U.S. credibility in the area and is not culturally sensitive, which means that the people will actually not want to work with the U.S. anymore, and you destroy any solvency the U.S. will have, has had, and will ever have. Yes, sir?
What's the Russian concern?
And also Russia will be able to solve for this because Russia tends to be more culturally sensitive in this area because they don't really care necessarily about women's, they don't necessarily impose their ideologies. They're not seen as the bad West that the U.S. is seen. Moving on to civil society. 1, they cross by their solvency. Why you don't solve for underpinning conflict. 2 is that the U.S. has bad representation after going to Benghazi after the Benghazi incidents. It also blocked Russian-sponsored non-violence resolution in Libya in 2012. This means the U.S. intervention is perceived as aggressive and triggers backlash. 3 is that U.S. and Russia historically disagree on the resolution in Libya, increasing proxy struggles in the region, which means they don't solve for any of the genocide, human rights, or golden arches arguments, and they actually trigger a proxy war in the region, which means that they do not solve for any stability in the region. In fact, they increase the conflict in the region.
Your topicality case, which is going to go straight down, starting at solvency, then advantage 2.
You're going to have to repeat all this, sorry.
Yeah, I'll just start from the top. T,
Okay.
case, solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2. Politics, Russia backlash, Russia counterplan, we shoot on bottom. We may or may not get to that, but I want you to have it just in
Okay.
case. Is everybody ready?
Cool. First, we meet your interpretation of civil society development. You say that it's being promoting shared values. We say that those shared values of women's rights are in Libya. We say that it may not be the largest shared value, but we say that it still exists. That's what it means we do meet your interpretation. Additionally, the second argument is counter-interpretation in civil society means the promotion of democratic and human rights values. The civil society is the promotion of democratic and civil rights values. The third is we meet this counter-interpretation because we are promoting both women's rights and democracy within. So within Libya means we marry your interpretation. The fourth is the counter-standards versus the debatability. We say this provides a debatable aspect for both teams to have arguments on both sides for why democratic promotion is bad. Means we are debatable. Additionally, second is this is a grammatically legitimate interpretation. We say that this is a grammatically legitimate reading of the resolution. We say that it makes it both predictable and accessible for both teams. Third is the affirmative right to define reasonability. We say that the affirmative is the right to define the resolution reasonably and through the use of parametrics as long as it's both debatable and grammatically legitimate. We say that this is best to prevent the negative teams from just writing the top calorie shells we would never be able to meet. Necessarily means we provides a better access to the round. They say literature based on their first standard. We say that first we say that this is not a good literature base for this topic because the fact means we would never be able to meet your interpretation if you are saying democratic values don't exist in Libya. There's no way for us to be able to ever meet your interpretation. Means this is a bad standard. Additionally, second, we say that you say limits. We say you are over limited because we don't get any access to any offensive use. This is worse. Additionally, you say ground. You only say first we say that you have ground. You could have said red democratic participation bad means you have ground. Additionally, second, we say that you are not always very into the ground that you want parliamentary debate means you should not be evaluating this. Good. Solvency. The first argument we make here is that there's no money in the status quo. First, we say that fiat overcomes these issues by allocating new funding. Necessarily means we are still able to solve African plan addition. Second, we say that $170 million just wasn't enough to provide for the entire country's democratic participation. Necessarily means that one plan is able to do this. Additionally, third, we say that this program is uniquely key because the fact that we are creating a new program within Libya to actually provide the better access and the actual structure instead of just throwing money at the problem. Necessarily means the plan is still able to solve African these issues. Additionally, the next argument we make here is about the United States superimposing our issues. We say first we say that now we are not superimposing the issues. You can look at that to all of our solvency arguments. We tell you that we are allowing the Libyan people to self-actualize and engage within civil society on their own. Necessarily means that we are actually promoting. We actually turn this argument by allowing individuals to have access to political sphere.
The empirics of Uganda and Ethiopia prove that it works.
Additionally, the empirics of Uganda and Ethiopia, which is laid by the PMC, empirically prove that your argument is not true. This means that we are going to still solve that for the case. Your next argument here about no time frame because the United Nations, we say that we are that this is a completely independent program from the United Nations means there is no access to this. Additionally, second, say that even if it's like fiat takes a little while, it's not that long. Like, we can still implement this in a very quick time frame, and we still get access to all of our constitutional arguments about how we are going to be able to promote these values before the drafting of the new constitution. That means we still get access to both the advantages. Your last argument here is we don't solve for the air of exceptionalism. First, we say that you don't provide an impact to this argument. It means we are still getting access to solvency. Additionally, second, we say that we are actually checking back this exceptionalism. You can look to our solvency analysis. We say that we are changing the values within the system itself by allowing individuals to get political participation. It means that we are solving back the case. Okay? Advantage 1. Their first argument is they're just cross-applying their backlash arguments. We say that first we say that we already checked this back. Additionally, second we say that that the status quo checks back this. You make an argument about $170 billion being provided to civil society in Libya. We say that this is enough to overcome any perception of check back against the plan for only provided for women. Necessarily means that we are still solving back for your case. Additionally, the next argument we make here is about Russia and solving that. We say first that Russia is really bad on women's rights issues. You can look at the Pussy Riot as an excellent example that Russia imprisoned several individuals of the women's rights movement. So it means that Russia is probably worse for women's rights, means the only case is able to access these impacts. Advantage 2, on civil society. They cross-apply their solvency arguments again. We already checked this back. The second argument they make here is about Benghazi, proving that we don't have access. We say that we are still in Benghazi was not a good example. We say there are multiple empirical examples. You can look at the fact that Benghazi was being looked as a cover for a CIA operation. That means that was causing backlash, not the United States promotion. Additionally, second, we say that the plan targets the women's rights movement better. That means we still able to solve back these. That all the arguments go away. The last argument on proxy struggle is just in the cross-application. We say that we already checked this back through the plan. Politics. The first argument is that not unique that unemployment won't pass now. Little A here is the Speaker of the House, John Boehner, said that the Senate version that they are talking about is unworkable, quote unquote. The little B here is you can look at the fact that there's Republicans don't want the retroactive allocation of lump sum funding to go here. That is a major sticking point that the Senate is going to provide lump sum retroactive giving all the unemployment benefits before the Senate they've expired. And actually means that the Republicans in the House won't pass this. Additionally, the little C it's not going to happen for a while. You can look at the fact that both Boehner and the Senate agree that unemployment benefits won't be dealt with for up to a month necessarily. That means that we are still, that means that it's not going to happen in the status quo. Additionally, the second argument that not mean that the economy is actually decreasing the status quo. You can listen to Romanelli, economist from the New York University, said that the fundamentals of the economy are weak and that most growth of the economy is only going to corporate profits, and it means the economy is actually decreasing the status quo. Wages overall have remained stagnant. The third argument here is the turn of the plan actually increases Republican support. You can look at the Republicans want to expand the United States sphere of influence and specifically expand democratic values. This is reasons why why we supported such things such as Iraq and Afghanistan in the past. Reasons why we tried to spread our democratic values. And this means why Republicans like this. Additionally, your argument about momentum doesn't function. You make a link on analysis on momentum. You say that this is checked back because the fact that the Congress is out of session right now necessarily means that the momentum is not going to be effective, and they can still deal with this in status quo. Additionally, the last argument on this is that the Ukrainian aid bill is going to swap any chance of the unemployment passing. Necessarily means that there's no risk of this scenario. Additionally, the last argument I want to hear is that there's no risk to these impacts. We say that the economy has decreased in the status quo is not led to the expansion that they talk about. You should prefer highly probable impacts. Russia backlash. First argument here is that 98% that relations are collapsing in the status quo. Little A here is that the United States is very angry at Russia for invading Crimea 2 days ago. They went in and took over a gas plant. Necessarily means relations are collapsing in the status quo. Additionally, little B is that relations are turbulent low because of the fact that the Snowden issue that Russia has been supporting Snowden necessarily means that this has been harming us in the status quo. Additionally, the little C here is that Syria is an excellent example about how relations have caused us to have to be turbulent low. Necessarily means that this is going to be worse. Additionally, the next argument is the link term the plan actually increasing the United States-Russia relations because of the fact that we are helping Libya's democratic transition. This is something that the Russian wants, and that means we are helping overall. Additionally, the third argument here is that we are going to be increasing Russian relations because of the fact that this is a unique point of cooperation between the United States and Russia outside of Crimea. Additionally, this is an excellent example because of the fact that Crimea wouldn't necessarily be taken off the table and not be spotlighted anymore. Means that Russia would be very happy about that. Means that this checkbacks all of your arguments. Additionally, there's no impact to this mutually assured destruction, but always check back against Russia and Russia collapsing. The rank scenario is Ukraine is going to go to war. This is already happening in the status quo. Means you don't get access to these arguments. Russia counterclaim. First argument is Perm do both. Perm do both. We say that there's no reasons why these two things are either textually or functionally competitive. We say that these two programs can't act independently of each other. Means these two things are not competitive. Additionally, the second argument here is no solvency. That Russia doesn't have these forms of programs in the status quo. It means you have time frame differential to creation of the program and implementation in an effective way. It means that you do not get access to the constitution arguments that we give you. Additionally, the third argument here is that you are the disadvantage of the counter plan that Russia is terrible on human rights issues, and most of the Christian writing as an excellent example, and the Russian of gay rights within Russia itself means that acting for Russia is probably worse. Means they are worse for democratic participation. Means the only plan example solve our case.
The order is going to be topicality, then politics, Russia backlash, case.
Can I get that again?
Yeah.
Case in the original order?
Yeah, it's topicality, politics, Russia backlash, case, counterplan. Actually, put the counterplan on top of politics.
So T then counterplan.
Yeah.
Russia. So just so I got it, T, counterplan, politics, case, which is in the same order.
Russia then case.
Russia, then case.
Yeah, sorry. Sweet.
Thank you.
Alright, everyone ready?
Yes, sir.
Starting off on T, extend the read need. That means that there's no risk of like voting on this paper. You don't just run to top over the panel plan. Extend the perm. The perm is a test competition. This is not an advocacy, which means that we're not going for this. It's just conditional. Like there's no reason to vote on this sheet of paper. There's no offense. Other than like Russia's terrible, but that's not an example of offense. It's just an example as to why like the plan is good, not a reason why the counter plan should be rejected. Yeah, it's conditional. So like we're not advocating. Good politics. Extend the argument that says there's no risk to any of these impacts because the economy is terminally low. And also extend the argument that says that Ukraine like aid bill is going to swamp the chance of this passing. There's literally no reason for you to vote on the term. The only argument they say is turn this increased GOP support. But in a world where they say that the Ukraine is going to swamp its chance of passing anyway, there's no reason why you should vote on this. Additionally, in a world where there's no impacts, there's no reason to vote on this sheet of paper. Disband Russia. They make arguments to say that relations are collapsing in the status quo, but I would like to point out that first of all, they're saying the U.S. is angry, but Russia's not angry at the United States. That's the point. Is that you anger Russia specifically? The point is that relations may be low, but that's not because that's not because Russia's backlashing against the United States, but rather because the United States is backlashing against Russia. We isolate a scenario in which the United States action here causes Russian backlash against the United States, causing escalation of conflict. You say that you give a bunch of warrants as to why it's terminally low, but the point is that these are all examples where the United States hasn't taken action. Syria, we didn't take action. Things like that. We haven't actually taken action because of the fact that Russia would cause large amounts of backlash. That's why your action specifically is bad. You say we increase relationships because we help them access democracy. Russia doesn't care about democracy. What Russia cares about is the point that they maintain their sphere of influence in the area. It's always going to be the reason why Russia cares about this. It's always going to be a unique link. You can extend through our uniqueness story in which we tell you that Russia sees Libya as part of their sphere of influence, extend all the reasons why that's true. Russia and Gaddafi were close. Russia stated that it regrets not vetoing the Libyan air support resolution, as well as that it's concerned about it's falling into Western hands. That means United States action in this area is going to look like it's falling into Western hands. It means that Russia is going to lead to the impact scenario. Go to the impacts. Or, I'm sorry, go to the links. Extend the link that says that U.S. intervention is perceived as a challenge and collapses relations. The United States is not challenging them other than with words right now. This is the only action that is able to trip this because the United States is moving into the Russian sphere of influence. It looks like they're trying to take over other areas than just Ukraine. Makes it look like the United States is aggressive against Russia's sphere of influence. The next argument is extend through the argument that says that the plan C is retaliation against the Crimea vote this morning to join Russia. Right? Like the point is that Crimea voted to join Russia this morning. The United States implementing this plan right now looks like we're just taking a direct shit on them. It's probably uniquely bad. Additionally, extend through the argument that says that the plan turns the tables and challenges Russia to take action. That means that they have to take action in order to not lose credibility. Russia is not taking action against the United States, and the only thing that they're doing right now is toying around with Crimea and occasionally pushing around Ukraine a little bit. That means that they're not escalating conflict in the status quo. You are the only internal link to Russia going insane and attacking the Baltics. Go to the impact scenario. Extend the impact scenario, which indicates that Russia's going to redouble their attempts to control Europe. Yes, they took Crimea this morning. That means that they're probably pacified right now because they got what they want, which means that all the ramifications are going down the status quo. Russia saw Crimea as their main objective. They got that. In a world where we backlash against Crimea, they see it as that they have to take more action than that. It means that they invade the Ukraine, which they haven't done. Yes, there's been some border conflict, but they haven't actually invaded the Ukraine. Additionally, we isolate that they would invade the rest of the Baltic nations, which is always going to be uniquely bad, like Georgia. That means that the EU and NATO are going to act. That's always going to be escalation of war that we isolate. This is always going to be the worst possible thing, and we're weighing arguments that indicate that this makes miscalculation inevitable, and that's always going to outweigh your case, because extinction is always going to be worse, because extinction is a prerequisite. We have to first exist before we worry about your case. That means that we're always going to be a more important issue. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Where's the page?
Solvency.
Yep. Okay. Go to solvency. You say that fiat allocates the funding. You miss the point of this. Our argument is that 170 million has already been spent, and there's been no indication. Solvency means that there's no risk that you're able to solve. You say your plan is uniquely key to structure. I don't see why. You never say why this is true. You just spout off the warrants of Uganda and Ethiopia. I see no reason why you're able to solve when you've already put large amounts of money into MEPI and the status quo. Probably a reason why you're not able to solve for this. But additionally, you drop the turn that indicates that you increase the white savior complex. This short circuits future development as kids see America as heroes instead of and not the locals means that they live in a hyper reality in which they don't believe that they're able to solve these sort of issues. Means that there's no risk that you're able to solve with the Constitution arguments. You drop this turn. This means that there's absolutely no risk of solvency for any of your case. Additionally, you say that yeah. All right. What else?
Okay, so like on the second turn, or like another.
Okay, write it then and give it to me. Okay. Go to case. I'll go back to solvency in a second. Go to case. You make arguments which indicate that status quo checks back against the backlash of U.S. efforts. But in a world where we're telling you that U.S. doing these things is going to make it worse because the United States is trying to push their own ideologies on this, you can extend through the warrant, which indicates that they vetoed a 2012 resolution to do something similar than this. It looks like the United States is moving in for their own interests. It means that there's no risk that they respect our action. It means that there's no risk that they'll ever be able to solve for the Constitution. Additionally, you're not winning any of the time frame warrants on your implementation. You say that, yeah, I'm sorry, go back to that's what I wanted. Go back to the solvency. You say that you're able to solve via your time frame. You say that you're able to solve via time frame because it's not going to be like super long. But that's not true in a world where we tell you that this program would, like, the Constitution's being written now. This program would take at least months, if not years, to implement, and wouldn't actually take any sort of significant change to the Constitution's struggles, because you have to change an entire culture before you're able to solve this. It means that you're not able to solve for the Constitution. It means you're not able to solve for any of your impacts because the Constitution's happening now, whereas your program would take years to actually take any importance. Even if you implement it right away, you can't change the reality of it right away. Also on solvency, turn. Allowing Libyan people to self-actualize increases backlash because Libyans are mostly collective as a culture and mostly patriarchal. Your culture values are a reason they will backlash. It makes conditions worse for women as they increase conflict because of the sort of solidarity that you claim to create. This is more likely to create patriarchal impacts, which is always going to turn your women's rights advantage as well as your civil society advantage. All right, Russia. Okay. Yeah, you say Russia can't solve because they're bad on women's rights issues. We kick the counterplan. No reason for that to matter. But in a world where you're losing arguments as to why you can't solve for women's rights, it's specifically the Constitution warrants. That means that there's no reason to vote for you. Additionally, you turn and make it worse because the backlash given to the Western interventionism, which they see as uniquely bad, means that there's no risk that you ever change anything. Go to civil society. You say there's all causes of Benghazi looking bad, but you don't respond to the warrant underneath that, which indicates that this looks like the United States is pushing themselves in because they vetoed a 2012 action, which is always going to be uniquely bad because it looks like the United States is simply trying to use them for their own goals. It means that there's no risk that you're ever able to solve for this because no one respects the U.S. action. It means that they never respect the program that you isolate as key to changing anything. You're never able to change anything, and we always outweigh on the impact level because we're getting to extinction first, and that means that none of your civil society arguments matter anyway.
Okay, so order is going to be overview, Russia backlash, solvency, advantage 1, advantage 2. Okay, so time frame, at the point where we are giving a specific articulation as to why Russia will backlash now. Russia will backlash immediately after you pass this plan. Even before the implementation starts, even before anything else starts, Russia will backlash. Their solvency takes decades. The point where you need to change an entire culture. Their impacts are stalling institutional violence and structural sexism and environmental destruction and human rights. Those are their impacts. Those impacts are cyclical impacts that take decades to overcome. At the point where we are winning on time frame, at that point, we are winning. At the point where we lead to extinction on the Russia backlash disadvantage before they even implement their plan, that means you're voting for the negative. Also, we have two case turns. One that goes completely dropped out of the MG and one that they do not completely respond to. We are winning on those. Moving on to the Russia backlash disadvantage. Russia backlash will happen immediately. Crossed by my analysis as to, crossed by my partner's analysis as to why Russia and the U.S. are not going to attack each other in the status quo, and that Crimea is an issue between Russia and the EU, and that Russia and the U.S. are only warring over words right now. At the point where you directly enter Russia's sphere of influence, that means that is a direct affront to Russia. And when things are already tenuous in the status quo, that means you trigger these massive impacts. At the point where they don't get any, they don't give the impact defense, pull across the argumentation, that will lead to extinction. Moving on to the case turns under the solvency dump. The first case turn goes fundamentally mishandled. Out of the MG. The case turn is that despite the case turn that the way they respond to the second argumentation under the solvency dump is that you're allowing the Libyan people to self-actualize. That phrase in and of itself goes against every cultural facet of the Libyan people, and that is a unique reason why your case will not solve. Again, I will reiterate what my partner said. By doing this and saying that you're allowing the Libyan people to self-actualize, you are going against their values of patriarchy and collectivism. You may not like those values, but that is the way that Libya operates, and at that point you destroy any solvency the U.S. is already having in Libya and has ever had in Libya. At the point where you destroy all U.S. credibility, you prevent any future solvency, as the U.S. cannot implement anything else in Libya at the point where the Libyan people do not see the U.S. as functioning under their culture. The third argument under the solvency dump goes completely dropped out of the MG, full across the argumentation that token success only entrenches cultural oppression and that the success re-entrenches the white savior. This short circuits future development as kids see Americans, not locals, as their heroes. That goes completely dropped out of the MG. My partner pulled it across the MO, and that turns the entirety of case. That means that they don't have any future solvency at the point where the locals are not solving for it. It's the Americans, and this re-entrenches the white savior mentality, which means they have no solvency, no ability to change their culture, and no ability to solve for their structural impacts. Moving on to advantage number one. Crossed by all my argumentation that Libya is in fact a patriarchal culture. At the point where it is a patriarchal culture, that means that we cannot solve for any of the impacts at the point where the plan itself is to increase women's rights. That means we can never solve for this institutional violence and structural sexism. At the point where you increase the sexism, when you increase the violence, as people backlash over that. Crossed by both the solvency turns. Moving on to advantage to civil society. Full across the argumentation that there's no risk to solve because U.S. action is mitigated under any argumentation that the U.S. is going against the Libyan culture. There is no ability to solve this at the point where the U.S. is seen as going against Libyan culture, and also the kids that see the U.S. solving for this are not looking to locals for solvency, they're looking to the U.S. and become reliant on the U.S. That means they don't solve for their impacts. They're going to go in the MG for this golden arches argumentation for the Russia backlash, but at the point where that'd be a shadow extension because it wasn't extended in the MG, you're voting negative.
I believe it's the same order. Russia backlash, case in order, but I actually want the politics flow on top. For a second.
only need one argument from this sheet. You can extend Corps' impact defense that it makes at the bottom. The mutually assured destruction is always going to check for nuclear conflict. This is a reason why you're never going to be evaluating Russian backlash above the affirmative case, because there's absolutely no risk of offense coming out of that sheet of paper, because Russia is never going to go to nuclear war with the United States, because they know that we will just nuclear annihilate them as well. Is a reason why the native team has lost the debate today, because they simply don't have any impact standing in favor of them. Now let's go to the Russia backlash dissat. The first argument that I want you to look to is Corps' link turn that you can extend about how this takes Crimea off the table and it shifts the focus and spotlights the issues that are happening in Libya right now. Is a reason why Russia is going to like this. When they never answer this back and their entire scenario is built off of Crimean aggression, then they're probably never going to be winning this link scenario and never going to be winning the debate today, because we are controlling the direction of the uniqueness that they read. The next argument that I want you to look to is the other turn that Corey makes just above that, where he says this is an increased amount of cooperation between the United States and Russia. Is a reason why Russia is not going to be mad about this. So you're going to be extending this. We are never going to be voting on this disadvantage. But the next argument that I want you to look to is the link turn just above that, where Corey says that this increases U.S.-Russia relations because it's helping the democratic transition, and they say that Russia doesn't care because they just want to maintain their sphere of influence. But part of their sphere of influence is the creation of a stable government, which is something that Russia wants. And when they concede the argument coming out of advantage, I think it's advantage 1 that, or it's out of advantage 2, that the Constitution is not going to happen in the status quo, that there will be no government without the plan, then the affirmative case is a try or die, because it is the only potential to resolve the stability of the government there and allow Russia to continue to exert its influence over an actual government rather than a governmentless region. Is a reason why Russia is always going to be liking this, and they are never going to be winning at the link level, means that we are never going to be evaluating their impacts. But moreover, let's go down to the other link arguments that they make out of the MO. The first argument that they make is that this looks like we're just trying to take over other regions. However, the United States has been already engaging in civil society development in Libya to the tune of $170 million, and this is only $10 million. Is a reason why that brink doesn't have, or there is no freaking brink here. The next argument that they make is that
That argument regarding that link is new to the speech.
I don't have that specific articulation at the link level. I mean, I'm sure the judges are going to take
Yeah, I'm sure it's
consideration. The next argument that they go for is that this is going to be viewed as retaliation, but they ignore Corey's turn about how this takes the spotlight off of Crimea as a reason why Russia is actually going to like us for this. The next argument that they make is that there is no, that Russia isn't escalating the conflicts in the status quo. However, you can extend all the Corps' argumentation about how they freaking are. They're trying to take over Crimea right now, and they just invaded Ukraine as a reason why Russian aggression is already happening, and you're never going to be evaluating the disadvantage. Yes, Corey?
They say Russia will be appeased. Crimea is the first step, not just the single goal.
Right, they say that Russia is going to be appeased, but Crimea is just the first step, not the only attainable goal. But the next argument that they make is that Russia is going to redouble its attempt to control Europe, but at the point at which they're already taking over other European nations, that's probably non-unique. The next argument that they go for is that the EU and NATO is always going to act. However, not once has this happened. They don't give us any reason. Moreover, when they have already taken over Crimea and the Ukraine, there's absolutely no reason to believe that there is any unique scenario coming out of the affirmative that is going to trigger this scenario as a reason why they are never going to be winning on this sheet of paper. Moreover, you can once again cross-apply the impact defense. There is no impact to this when they can see the mutually assured destruction is only going to check for nuclear conflict, which is their only impact scenario coming out of this, means that the negative team is never going to be winning the debate on the dissat today. Happy, Corey?
Yeah.
On to the solvency. The first argument that I want to look to is the one that they make at the top about how there is no individual solvency. However, you can cross-apply the US8 study that said that this would work when they don't actually read any warrants, and we are reading you a study that says that this is going to work, then we're never going to be buying their lack of analysis. The next argument that they make is that they claim that Corey dropped the white savior turn. However, Corey responded to this by saying that we are not actually imposing our values, that the United States is just helping along the political process, and you can extend that this is empirically denied because it already worked in Uganda and Ethiopia as a reason why you're never going to be buying the white savior complex, because it's just an idea that they have, but to the point at which the programs have been effective in other countries and haven't triggered the white savior complex, then there's absolutely no reason to evaluate this. The next argument that I want you to look to is where they say that there are no impacts, however, no time frame. However, the argument, there's no ability to solve for the Constitution, but at the point at which the Constitution is never going to happen because they drop the lack of the inevitability claim, I guess, that the Constitution isn't going to happen in the status quo, then they have no access to winning the debate today because it is a try or die for the affirmative in order to resolve the lack of Constitution in Libya is a reason why the affirmative team has won the debate today. The last argument that I want you to look to is the new turn that they make at the bottom, that Libya is going to backlash through the patriarchy. However, this is inherent right now. The patriarchy is already oppressing women. There is no creation of new patriarchy through the affirmative plan. We only have a risk of solvency. There's absolutely no reason to evaluate that turn. Happy, Corey?
Yes.
Advantage 1.
They say
You can
that
extend-
the U.S. We check that.
Yeah, we check back Russia. I mean, you can cross-apply all the arguments from the Russia flow, extend the impact scenario that we are going to be able to resolve this structural balance, and this only happens through the affirmative on advantage 2, extend the impacts about human rights, about genocide and environmental destruction. This can only be solved through the affirmative. When there's no risk of disad and we solve the affirmative, we win the debate.